So I wanted to do a fashion trend predictions for footwear specifically. The reason that I wanted to focus on just footwear for this trend prediction video is because I've actually just left my job at Nike. So I worked for Nike for the past 5 years. I joined Nike when I was just 20 years old, for context. I started as an intern and then I stayed for the next 5 years, obviously in different roles. I worked at their European headquarters, which is in a place called Hilversum, which is in the Netherlands. And now I'm actually moving to London. I'm moving back to the UK because I'm going to be doing a master's in fashion journalism at Central St. Martin. So I'm obviously so excited for this new chapter. And because I'm moving to London, because I'm moving to a new city, I just thought it's the perfect time to sort of level up my footwear game. So what I've been doing is looking into the footwear trends for 2024, some interesting micro trends, small brands as well. And I've really come across so many cool aesthetics, so much inspiration. So I thought it would be perfect to share with you as well. Talk about fashion trend predictions for 2024 within footwear specifically. Just like in my other fashion trend prediction videos, I want to start with the overarching trends that we're going to see in the mass market of footwear. And then I'm also going to talk about some of the more niche micro trends that have resonated with me specifically. And then I also wanted to mention some of the cool collaborations that we've already seen in December, and also some of the cool collaborations in footwear that we're going to see throughout the whole year of 2024, in case you're into those as well. So I really hope you like these trends. To be honest, I haven't seen them spoken about that much already. This is going to be my 2024 fashion trend predictions for footwear specifically. Obviously, the first one is something we've all heard of, ballet flats. Ballet flats were a huge thing in 2023, really spurred on by Miu Miu, obviously. I really thought it was going to be one of those trends that only lasted a few months and that everyone would get really sick of. However, I personally now feel like ballet flats are just going to be a staple footwear silhouette in everyone's wardrobe. And it's very clear that the trend of ballet flats, the popularity of ballet flats, is not going to slow down in 2024 at all. Obviously, very similar to this is the Mary Jane type of shoe. Slightly similar to this is obviously slingback heels as well, specifically with the pointed toe. Again, a very similar look and feel to ballet flats, Mary Janes. Another trend that's obviously dominated the footwear market in 2023 is these bright coloured retro sneakers. Specifically, of course, the sneaker of the year, Adidas Sambas. Also, these Fenty Pumas are very much associated with this trend, associated with this kind of look and feel as well. Also, of course, the Onitsuka Tigers Mexico 66 trainers. I do think these yellow trainers specifically have had a huge impact on this retro bright sneaker trend that we've seen a lot of in 2023. Specifically, the colours that are being spotlighted for the mainstream market are yellow and red. Of course, red has been a huge thing in 2023, and it is continuing to be predicted as a huge colour in footwear specifically for 2024 as well. It's really clear we've moved away from this chunky retro dad sneaker that's really dominated the footwear market for the past couple of years, the past several years, and we've really moved to a more slender, a more flat fitted type of shoe. Also, loafers are being spoken about, horse bit loafers. And then I also saw just this idea of silver and gold accents on shoes. Obviously, silver shoes, metallic shoes, again, are going to continue to be popular next year as well. It goes without saying that moto boots are going to continue to be a huge thing, any type of boot, to be honest. I did see specifically in terms of mainstream trends that these sort of slouchy boots might be a trend. One other thing that I wanted to mention is obviously this idea of exaggerated textures or embellishment on footwear. If you look at the 24 runways, a lot of the footwear, a lot of the heels incorporated embellishments, incorporated bows and flowers onto the heels. This kind of ties into the idea of accessorizing your footwear, accessorizing your accessories. I really do like this trend, to be honest, because obviously you can add bows, add little accessories to your existing footwear. I think it gives a very interesting aesthetic. It can really level up a whole outfit, the whole styling of an outfit. There's definitely so much cool inspiration, so many cool reference images of people doing this. Overall, I think it's clear we're just moving away from the more chunky shoes, the more retro dad sneakers. We're obviously moving to more dainty shoes and just more flats overall. In terms of the cool collaborations we're going to see, obviously recently there's been such cool collaborations in the mass market of footwear. One that I really liked is obviously the Palace and UGG collaboration, the Nike ACG hiking boot, the HOKA Ora Primo as well, and I also wanted to highlight this Lil Nas and Crocs collaboration. I think we've also recently seen the Off-White and Nike collaboration, and then in terms of up-and-coming collaborations that we're going to see throughout the whole year of 2024, there is a Justine Saunders and Adidas Sambas collab that's coming out in spring of 2024. I also saw this New Balance Snow Peak and Tokyo Design Studio collaboration that's going to be seen early next year. There's also another Jacquemus and Nike collaboration. There are also other cool Croc collaborations. I'm excited specifically for the Simone Rocha collab. Also, something that I didn't expect to see is the Issey, Miyake and New Balance collaboration. Again, really excited for this one. There's also Sacai and Nike, Gucci and Birkenstock, Puma and Skepta, and then finally there's going to be a Maison, Margiela and Salomon collaboration. Like I mentioned, because I have just left my job at Nike, I feel like it really has opened up my footwear world, and I am really obsessed with Salomon. I actually just ordered these Salomons in the green colorway. I am so obsessed. I feel like they're going to add such a nice element to sort of every outfit that I wear. So really obsessed with Salomon, and definitely some really cool collaborations coming out in footwear in 2024. So now I want to talk about some of the more niche trends, some of the more micro aesthetics that are being spoken about. The first one is super interesting, and it sort of captures a few different micro trends within it. It is the overarching aesthetic of what's being described as the school shoe or school shoes. To be honest, I think this is kind of obvious if you think of ballet flats, loafers, Mary Janes. You could say they do fit into this school shoe vibe, school shoe aesthetic. Personally, I think this is just another iteration of librarian core, workwear, but definitely anything that comes under this school shoe vibe I do think is going to be a huge thing in 2024. My mind's also going to those flat sort of PE pumps with the Velcro that we wore in PE or gym class. I do also weirdly think that Gingham shoes, Gingham Mary Janes, red Gingham ballet flats could fit into this whole school shoe aesthetic as well. Maybe that could be some fun inspiration for your summer footwear. I also saw this reference picture of these vintage Adidas Sambas, obviously with all the pins on. I think a lot of people are aware of this collaboration, are aware of this picture, this shoe specifically. However, I do think with the micro trend of accessorizing your bag with pins, I do think this is definitely something that we've seen bits of in 2023, and it does have the potential to be a bigger micro trend, a bigger trend in 2024 as well. The final micro trend that I think fits into this and that is being spotlighted a lot for 2024 is this idea of this leveled up socks and sandals look. I personally feel like this is a lead on from the popularity of colored tights, lace tights, also leg warmers that we saw in 2023. But it's basically this idea of putting socks with shoes, silhouettes of shoes that we wouldn't traditionally put socks or tights with. The reason that this is really being highlighted as a huge trend for 2024 is because it was heavily featured on the 24 runways. Again, there are so many cool reference pictures for this look, for this aesthetic, and I'm really excited to see how it evolves. I do think it also ties into this trend of bows, trend of embellishments. The fact that you could really pair footwear with interesting socks to really level up the whole look, I think is a really cool trend. So I don't have a favorite micro trend on this list, but to be honest, the next one I am really excited about. In my 2024 fashion trend prediction video part 2, I mentioned this trend that's going to be a huge thing in 2024, and basically this is the trend of Y2K futurism but mixed with this more minimal 90s editorial look. And what's cool is that I've seen this trend spotlighted for footwear specifically as well. Basically this idea of any sort of Y2K futuristic footwear. I personally feel like this has really been spurred on by the fact that the Nike Clogposite shoe is going to be re-released in 2024. So I saw this on Sneaky News, but basically the Nike Clogposite was a shoe in the early 2000s. It screams Y2K futurism, this whole kind of retro icy aesthetic that people really do seem to be obsessed with. Also the color palettes that are associated with this, thinking of things like blue, silver, any sort of icy tone, retro editorial tone. I feel like vintage Shox also sort of fit into this aesthetic. Maybe some white vintage Shox, silver, baby blue would be so cool. I did also see this Asics collaboration. In a way, this kind of fits into this aesthetic, kind of sums up what I mean by this as well, with the blue, with that more retro look. So this is something that I think we are going to see more of in terms of a niche micro trend for footwear in 2024. I do also think that this is a trend that you can definitely shop vintage. I do think if you're looking for a retro futuristic type of sneaker, the best ones you're going to get are definitely going to be from the early 2000s, from the 90s. It would be so cool to find an original Nike Clogposite shoe. I have no idea how accessible they are. I have no idea if they're rare or if they're easy to find. I do also think the Grace Wells Bonnet and Adidas Samba also fits into this aesthetic, and also the Prada Adidas and Jerry Lorenzo collaboration collaboration kind of goes with this as well. Some small brands that I love that I think fit into this aesthetic is of course Beehive that I've mentioned on this channel before, also Invasive Modification, and also Toile Studio. The final thing that I wanted to mention that I believe fits into this aesthetic is any sort of pointed shoe with the buckles on. Obviously we all know about Ganni's pointed toe shoe with the buckle on. This is such a nice shoe and been so popular in 2023. I do think this does definitely fit into a Y2K aesthetic. It was featured on so many 24 runways as well. So the next niche micro trend that's being spoken about for footwear next year is this idea of football core or fusing fashion and football. Obviously this whole fashion and football aesthetic has been a huge thing for many years. Obviously of course with the impact of the Beckham's docu-series, this has only propelled this trend even more. And to be honest, I do think that we haven't seen this trend overdone in footwear yet, so I think it could still be something that people are really interested to try out in 2024. I really do think generally this idea of merging more feminine silhouettes, feminine aesthetics with the more masculine aesthetic of football attire or sportswear in general has definitely been a concept that we've seen explored in 2023, and I think we're only going to see more of this. Also of course with big sporting events coming up in 2024, I think this is only going to give even more momentum to this trend. Again, I think this Onitsuka trainer really fits into this and in a way has been propelling this trend as well. Also this brand is such a perfect example of combining smart footwear with this sporty aesthetic. I'm obsessed with all of the footwear pieces that they create. Also I do think the Martine Rose Nike collaboration, this fits into this sporty but formal aesthetic, and it really gives such an interesting and just such a cool final look, and I am really obsessed with it. Again, there are just so many great ways to shop this trend vintage, so many great iterations of this trend. I do also remember boxing boots, these sort of vintage boxing boots being spoken about as a micro trend in 2023. I do feel like boxing boots could also fit into this, so it'll be interesting to see if these crop back up again next year as well. So the final niche footwear trend for 2024 that really resonated with me, really stood out to me, was this idea of smart functional footwear. So again, in my 2024 fashion trend prediction video, I mentioned that in 2024 we're going to see this sort of more mature, more refined version of Gorp core. It will be this less exaggerated version of Gorp core that we've seen in the past and just overall be more mature, more muted and more refined. And then what's so funny is I came across this Business of Fashion article, and it was basically talking about this idea of quiet outdoors or the quiet outdoors. And quiet outdoors literally means this more stripped back version of outdoor wear, of Gorp core that we've seen in the past. Personally, I am just so drawn to this aesthetic, drawn to this trend, because I feel like the final result that you get with functional but formal footwear is just so cool. I think a really good example is obviously Dirt that I've mentioned before, a small footwear brand. I was so intrigued by these heels specifically because they're obviously a traditional formal feminine silhouette, but with this sort of Gorp core outdoorsy aesthetic, I just think they're so cool. I also came across this small brand Viron. I feel like their slip-on shoes kind of fit into this as well. I do also think that the HOKA Ora Primo collaboration also fits into what I mean by this aesthetic as well. However, I think in terms of how this trend will actually come to life in 2024, I feel like we're going to see more functional boots, more functional loafers, and again I feel like this really fits into this smart casual aesthetic that we're going to see as an overarching trend in 2024. So that was really it in terms of everything I wanted to mention. In terms of random other things that I saw spotlighted in trend forecasting reports, obviously flip-flops were being talked about a lot, specifically just plain black sort of flat traditional flip-flops. I also did see white boots. Personally, I don't know if white boots are going to be so popular in 2024, but I suppose they do also kind of fit into this futuristic Y2K aesthetic, so it'll be interesting to see if white boots specifically do become a trend. In terms of my specific sort of footwear wish list, I haven't seen this being spoken about as a trend at all, to be honest, but I'm really into any sort of green footwear in every type of silhouette. I came across so many cool reference photos for green footwear specifically, so that's something that I'm personally on the lookout for next year as well. I also really want some vintage baby blue retro sneakers with silver accents on. I feel like in all my years of thrifting, I've come across so many cool retro baby blue sneakers, but I've just never bought them, so I would really love to get some of those for next year as well. And generally, I do really like the trend of more slender footwear, less chunky retro dad sneakers. I do just really like the overall aesthetic that this gives. That's really everything I wanted to mention in terms of footwear trend predictions for 2024. Definitely let me know what you think of these trends, these micro trends as well. And until the next one, I hope you have an amazing day. Bye!